Hello, and welcome to Dog Days, where we talk about all things cannabis. I am your hostess with the mostest, Holly B. And today in the doghouse, we have a very distinguished author in the doghouse. Pot for the People author Angie Roullier is in the house. Welcome.
Hi.
So, where are you out of, Angie? I was kind of looking through your stuff. Are you out of Detroit? Did I guess right?
Yeah, I'm in the metro area. I'm actually out in the country. But yeah, I come from the great Mitten State.
Oh, that's pretty cool. What's the cannabis scene there?
It's crazy. So we've been doing our caregiver since 2008. So we have been around a minute. And then, of course, we had full blown medical and then they jumped right into rec. So we've been doing this a minute, not quite as long as, Colorado and California, but we're certainly not newbies.
Oh, awesome. So it's still kind of wishy-washy out there in Detroit, kind of still trying to get their footing. That's got to be kind of frustrating a little bit.
Um, it can be, in my own opinion. I think we jumped too quickly into recreational. Medical was just getting its feet. And, of course, they, slap RECA right on top of it before we even knew what we were doing with medical. So we're all
Exactly.
still trying to get our bearings and, things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to get a little bit of background of the guests when they come on. What got you into the cannabis field?
So I have CMT, Charcot-Marie tooth. And at, the tender age of mid 30s, single mom, my kidneys were starting to shut down after decades of taking pills. So, of course, they wanted to throw more pills at me to combat, the kidneys and, things of that nature. And it was enough. It was probably about 2010. And I said, absolutely not. Again, Michigan had been doing it since 2008. So I figured, what the hell, I'll take a look into it and see what's going on. I personally struggle growing cannabis, growing anything. I mean, I can kill a cactus. So I went and I found myself a caregiver, right? So I went and I found myself a caregiver who's extremely knowledgeable. I got crazy lucky finding this guy, and he actually grew what I needed to get me off of all of my medication, and I was hooked. Ever since, you can't shut me up about it, just about how it can help, how it can harm, and how it can work in our lives. And that is pretty much what got me going on this path of mine.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that very personal story. And a lot of the guests that I have on here can just relate with that. They're coming from anxiety, they're coming from physical pain, that kind of thing. And they found the plant and they love it. They fall in love with it. So let's talk about your book, Pot for the People. I love that name.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it starts out with history.
Mhm.
Well, I better not get ahead of myself. The preamble, you do give a disclaimer that you're not a medically trained person, you're not a doctor, you're not a nurse, but you are coming from experience, hands-on, in the trenches experience.
Correct. So I have been in this industry about 15 years now. The first 10 were in retail. So, I mean, you saw these people day in and day out. And in some of these shops that I've worked in, I mean, you would see 300 people a day. I mean, think about how many people a doctor's office may see in a day. It's nowhere near. And, so you really get a good sense of, the layman's questions. They're standing in front of you because they need help. And 9 times out of 10, it's a last resort. It's a last ditch effort. They've tried everything else out there, and in my opinion, it actually should be the first thing you try before you start piling on the pills, because that's something else that you have to work your way back from. And again, I'm not medically trained in any way. I'm certainly not going to tell you don't take the anti-seizure medication that your doctor prescribed instead of cannabis, because there absolutely are drug interactions and things like that. But when I would see, and even after I left retail, I was still getting the same questions over and over, whether it was, talking to groups or, even, the scantily clad, older woman in the locker room at swim class. They all seem to have the same questions. And instead of just constantly repeating myself, I'm like, what the hell? I said, I'll just purge. I'll put it all down in a book and what I deem to be, important and in layman's terms, because as you know, the science can get, crazy confusing. And a lot of people don't know how to apply that to their own lives. So I really did my best to break it down, fully cited, by the way. So don't listen
Yes.
to me, listen, the National Institute of Health, the Mayo Clinic, things like that. It was really important to me to have that science backing my opinion.
Absolutely. So you did send me a copy of it. Thank you so much. This is definitely going to be in my arsenal for sure. Give it out to friends and family who are really just interested in it and maybe not sure what the language is, or what is the endocannabinoid system. This is a perfect book for the curious, for the canna curious, to get a hold of and start thumbing through, because you go from pretty much A to Z.
I really tried to. I mean, of course, as we all know in this industry, you can take any one of those subjects that I put in there and just run it until the wheels fall off. I really
Yes.
tried to break it down and get it in there. But if whoever's reading it feels the need to fall down that rabbit hole, knock yourself out. I could have, people write books just on the history, you know,
Yeah.
just on the science. So I really wanted to try to give everybody a taste of exactly, how immense this industry is and how many different avenues you can take.
Yes, absolutely. So, we're going to take a really quick look at your link tree here. It's beautiful. I had another guest on. His link tree was beautiful. I got to catch up to you guys because
I can do
everybody's
it.
looking so very polished and professional, and mine's kind of looking like Rainbow Bright's link tree. So I need to kind of get with it. But here is your website. Beautiful. I love those colors. And so I really enjoy looking at your website as well. You talk about your book and you talk about research and you have endorsements and interviews. You share your story on here. Cannabis Queens. Oh yes, you're a fellow cannabis queen. You're in the book with me as well.
Yes, ma'am.
That was such fun. That was a fun time.
It really was, and such an honor. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. It was overdue, to have all the women together and share their stories in that type of setting. So, back to your book here. So, Cannabis for the Regular Joe by a Regular Jane. And again, going through the disclaimer, and then you go into know your cannabinoids. And so you define the different cannabinoids, because that can get very confusing. CBG, CBN, THCA, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, what it does, what it doesn't do. So I really, especially when it comes to bud tenders, I it's not necessarily that they're going to know this stuff off the top of their head, but nothing makes me happier than when I see one of my books like tucked next to the register and like beat to shit, because I know it's been used and they're using it as a reference on a daily basis. They can pull up CBN and go through the list and go, okay, it works for A, B, and C, but mind you, these are the side effects that might come with it. And, these people behind the counter are learning, more and more as they get this information out there. And so is the consumer.
Beautiful. So if you are in the retail business out there, and also as a consumer, and you have any questions about your cannabinoids, this book is going to be your go-to. Absolutely, because it can get overwhelming. And then there's synthetics that are coming out too. And people are playing kind of like the shell game. Like, okay, you have outlawed THCA. Well, we're going to make THCO in the lab. And spray it on hemp and sell it as a hemp product. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's pretty gross. I think it's pretty lazy. There are over 100 compounds plus in cannabis naturally, the way it sits. Let's maybe figure out what's going on with those 100 before we start introducing new ones into it. Yeah, the whole THCA thing, and I actually go on a couple of different rants in my next book about the THCA, versus, because I don't know if, people understand that if you take a joint from, Michigan rec and you take a THCA joint from South Carolina, which doesn't have any sort of, program whatsoever, you set both of them on fire, they're exact same thing.
Yeah.
So whether they're ignorant to the actual, chemical conversion once you set it on fire, or in the words of Tom Petty, whatever just play dumb. Uh, I mean, and again, that's a completely different rabbit hole. But yeah, you definitely have to touch on it, especially these days. With all of these new synthetics, I'm just not a big fan.
Not neither am I, but at the same time, I'm finding that I have to kind of redefine my stance on that because there are synthetics out there in the medical cannabis arena that are actually doing, like fantastic things, like possibly the I have to watch myself. I'm not going to make any absolutes. Can't talk absolutely,
Right.
but there is a possibility, a chance that a synthetic could really like help with cancer.
No, absolutely. I believe at that point, when it's being used for something like that, that absolutely needs, a doctor and a pharmacist involved, because there are so many other drugs. This isn't something that you should just pop into, a shop and, just start taking on your own without, prior education.
I agree. And then I'm on LinkedIn and I read some of the conversations that go on LinkedIn. It's kind of comical sometimes, but that some folks are there like they have very definite opinions of cannabis in this industry for sure. And there are some folks out there who are of the mindset, hey, if you have to go to a doctor or a nurse to find out what cannabinoids or what to smoke, then you've missed the whole point. Of course, I don't agree with that, but there is, that kind of line of thinking out there.
Oh, absolutely there is. And, but like I said, when it comes to the synthetics, we really don't know, what they could do, what they can't do, to whereas the cannabis plant, as it sits, in the dirt, we've had a lot more experience with those cannabinoids, naturally. And of course, we're obviously learning a lot more lately, just because the whole thing is just kind of blown up. But
Yes.
yeah, so we've got a little bit, more behind us when it comes to the natural cannabinoids as opposed to, the synthetics. I'm not saying they're good, bad, or indifferent. We just
Mhm.
know that much little, about them.
Yeah. So I think we're on the same page. We're vibing. I think we're whole plant girls.
Amen. All day. Voice on Sunday.
Exactly. Way cool. So here we go. Your story. We hit on that, and thank you for sharing that. And then we have, where can we buy your book at?
I think it says order at the top.
Order now. So you have an ebook
I
of
do.
this. Oh, that's so cool. Nice. So people could they download the ebook and then say, I have a question about CBG. Can
Mhm.
they kind of query the ebook and it'll take them to that section? Does
They
it work?
should be able to. Yeah, I personally have never opened up one. I'm old school. I like the feel of paper books in my hands, but I wanted to make sure that those that, do use, the e-platforms, that they can have access to it as well.
Yeah, they can load it up on their Kindle and get on the treadmill and just kind of have some me time, read about your cannabinoids
And
and
they can share it. Yeah.
and yeah, absolutely, that's smart. So this goes into defining the endocannabinoid system. Oh, that's so key. That's so key. And how to establish that homeostasis and have everything in balance.
Yeah.
That's
What it's all about. I mean, it's the body's biggest regulator. Your nervous system is firing too hot, it tells it to calm its ass down. Your immune system is acting sluggish, it may, kick it in the seat and, tell it to get going. Yeah.
And doctors should be trained on this. This is another blowing thing that I'm finding in the cannabis industry and with medical cannabis and doctors. They are not being trained in school about the endocannabinoid system. What are
They
your
are,
thoughts on that?
well, it's again, it's lazy. I think there's a lot of ego involved. I
Mm,
know I don't want to know anything else. Especially with the older physicians. I find MDs are pretty much stuck in their own ways to where DOs are a little bit more open. A plan of attack that I recommend for people who want to discuss cannabis with their doctors, and when the doctors are extremely anti, I try and pull up research on cannabis from their alma mater.
mm.
And they really have a hard time, arguing when it, comes from their, educational institution. I'm a little bit shameless. I mean, I'll leave it in their lobby. I don't care.
I love that. That's awesome advice. I love that. And then you go into the entourage effect
Mhm.
and defining that. And that is another very key things, how the terpenes and the flavonoids work together. And again, you those are a whole other rabbit holes that you could easily fall into, but you touch on it and you give a very good, not over technical definition of the entourage effect, which is cool.
Thank you. And again, whole plant to me is where it's at. It makes all the difference. I'm a huge, huge fan of one-to-one flower. Uh,
Yes.
it's just absolutely one of my favorites, and you're so hard pressed to find it in shops. And every time I would ask a grower, they would just say, oh, it's hard to grow and it doesn't yield, and people don't buy it. Well, I personally believe that if bud tenders knew what was up, they'd be selling it in droves. That
Mm,
would be one of the first products that they would push is, anything, one to one, especially if, obviously if they're flower smokers. When you
yes.
get into the edibles and the tinctures and stuff like that, you're going to find that it's, distillate mixed with isolate, which is
Mm.
the exact opposite of, the entourage effect. They've stripped all the other good stuff out of it, and they're just leaving you, with the basic bones. So yeah, no, I'm
Exactly.
a big fan.
I'm still growing in this industry too, even though I have a Master of Science from the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy. I'm still learning stuff too. Like the isolates may not be that great of a product. You need the whole thing. You need that full spectrum to get all the good stuff out of it. And there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. And there's actually, there's a ton of research out there showing that, isolates, just like any other pharmaceutical, you're going to hit a wall. It's going to stop working. So it's no different than your doctor prescribing a low dose, say, blood pressure pill. And then they have to keep upping the dosage to make sure it works. And then finally, you hit that wall, and now you're on to trying something else. That doesn't happen with whole plant. They don't find you have to keep increasing the dosage once you find your sweet spot.
Beautiful. We are vibing. We are like one, our minds are like so much. I'm enjoying this. This is really cool. So the endocannabinoid system talked about that. This is just a really good book for the canna curious for sure. And then you have a glossary in the back for sure. Just of the basic words. And you're not shy about talk about stuff either. Bio blunt, bong, bowl. I mean, you're all into it. It's just like out there. This is awesome. This is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
They should pick up on the culture. One of
Yeah.
my fears is, the culture's being lost, um, just between, corporate and, you know what I mean? The biggest sale of the basket, and it's not really, about the patient. And, so I feel the need that they do need to know what puff puff pass means, and what a pinner is, and things like that if they're brand new to it.
So what do you think about like the names whenever Okay, I'm an 80-year-old woman. I go in for my arthritis or something. Do I really want to be, can I have an ounce of Gorilla Glue?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, it is. I know. It's like, oh, this is going to be great for sleep, and it's called crack. Big fan of crack, by the way. The strain. But yeah, it definitely is. And as a bud tender, when you know your shit, it's easier to get into. Okay, well, this is high in myrcene. You know what I mean? It's got an even ratio of THC and CBD, and you know what I mean? And at that point, they're like, okay, that sounds like it might be something for me. You don't necessarily lead with, and by the way, it's grandpa's breath. Um, so it is difficult. I actually have a hard rule. I don't smoke or buy anything that ends in a Z.
oh,
Um, I just not a big fan. But that's my own personal, because it is hard, and I get it can be fun, and so many different strain names, ATF and things like that, and that's the fun part of the culture. But when you're actually trying to help somebody medically, with the plant, it could be a little counterproductive.
I will tell you, I've already broken in the book. I already have it tabbed. I have tabs on it.
Nice.
It's already it already has some dog ears and a couple coffee stains. So
It's just how I like to see them.
so it's I am definitely appreciative of your book, Pots of the People. Folks, this is where you can go and get it. Please check her out. Potforthepeople.co is the website. And I hopefully our tickers and banners have been showing her website and her emails and how to get a hold of her. This has been a joy. I can't wait until your next book comes out. Can I ask what it's going to be titled?
Yeah, so it is the Bud Tender's Blueprint.
Oh.
I condensed a lot of Pot for the People, and I made it colorful. I made it easy to access. I really get into policy and how to interact with those with Alzheimer's, those with anxiety at the counter, things like that, and how to stand up for yourself when you're being bullied. Whether the boss man upstairs or whether it's the people at the counter, things like that, and just basic, shop policy for anybody who's looking to get into this absolute circus of an industry.
You're absolutely right on that. Hey, Angie, it has been a joy. And please come back whenever the new book comes out. Send me a copy, please.
Yeah.
And then I'll get you back on the podcast. Hey, have a great day out there, folks. Stay safe.